the Galactic Empire invades, we'll make them wish they'd never been born," Commander Baker growled, slamming his fist on the console after the transmission ended. His Hazari contact, Corvus, had just delivered a dire warning. The Empire was preparing a full-scale assault on human space, arrogantly believing mankind would fall like dominoes before their military might. But the Hazari had never faced humanity in battle before. They had no idea of the beast they were poking. Baker immediately put out the call, mobilizing every fleet and activating every defensive system. Across Earth and its colonies, armies mustered and ships armed for war. Through furtive discussions with Corvus, Baker pieced together the nature of their galactic foe. The Empire was a sprawling intergalactic regime, ruling hundreds of subjugated species with an iron fist. The Hazari were its master race, proud, warlike, and disdainful of all they considered weak. To their Emperor Valox, military strength was the only truth in the universe. Might made right. And now Valox hungered for new glories and conquests to immortalize his reign. His sycophantic advisors spoke of the humans as primitives, as upstart children squatting in the sandbox of their betters, practically begging to be conquered and taught their place. How little they understood humanity's progress since their last contact centuries ago. Whispers of the impending human Hazari war spread like wildfire through the Empire's vassal races and protectorates. Doubt crept into the hearts of even the most loyal. Mankind's technology was not to be underestimated, the fearful murmurs said, nor their indomitable warrior spirit. Had the Hazari, perhaps, finally bitten off more than they could chew? Baker harbored no illusions. This war would be costly and hard-fought, but it was a price humanity would pay in blood and fire to secure its sovereignty. If the Hazari wanted a war, they'd get one that would echo through the ages, one that would make them tremble at the sound of humanity's name. So Baker assembled the brightest and boldest Earth had to offer, peerless admirals, unstoppable soldiers, mad scientists, all to unleash hell with the most lethal defense the galaxy had ever witnessed. The Hazari would learn the error of their arrogance. This was no mere battle. This was a war for humanity's survival, a crucible in which mankind would prove its mettle before the eyes of the galaxy. There could be no other outcome. Baker would make sure of it, even if he had to tear the stars from the sky. Baker's preparations shifted into overdrive when Corvus risked everything to secretly travel to Earth and meet with him face to face. The Hazari rebel passed over critical files detailing the invaders' battle tactics, the full capabilities of their warships, and dossiers on key Hazari military leaders. "Use this to hit them where it hurts," Corvus said, his voice low and urgent. "Find the chinks in their armor. My people are powerful, but not invincible." Baker clasped Corvus's shoulder. "We'll make each strike count. Thank you for this." With this trove of insider intel, Baker huddled with his top strategists and analysts to devise plans to mercilessly exploit any Hazari weakness while negating their strengths. Across Earth, the greatest human minds worked tirelessly to revolutionize their military tech for the coming storm. In cutting-edge labs and hidden factories, engineers and scientists pushed themselves to the brink, fueled by a potent mix of defiance, desperation, and ingenuity. Advanced shields sprang into being, ready to shrug off the wrath of Hazari weaponry. Armories churned out guns and bombs of unprecedented destructive power. Aerospace hangars roared with the engines of nimble new fighters and interceptors designed to fly circles around the enemy's lumbering craft. And at the heart of it all, experimental battle AIs whirred and calculated, their neural networks primed to crunch trillions of variables in nanoseconds, optimizing fleet formations, fine-tuning firing solutions, and reacting to the chaotic flux of combat with inhuman speed. While the arms race raged, Baker scoured the ranks for the best of the best. Unmatched aces like Jack Harrison, commandos as lethal as they were anonymous, hardened troopers with icy nerves. These steely-eyed warriors poured into hidden camps to prepare for the bloody work ahead, drilling day and night in the art of killing Hazari forces. Holograms of hulking Hazari troopers, flickering videos of their ships on the attack. Jack and the other pilots in training ate, slept, and breathed these hated foes. They memorized every tactic, every weapon, every chink in the Hazari's armor, honing their bodies and minds into the galaxy's sharpest spear. Even as Earth girded for war, Baker made one final plea for peace, a Hail Mary to avert the coming bloodshed. Over an open channel, he stared down Emperor Valox himself. "Think carefully before you do this," Baker said, his voice cold and hard as iron. "If you come for us, we will fight you to the last, and the price you pay will be beyond reckoning." Valox sneered, his words dripping with contempt. "Mind your tongue, ape, lest I rip it out. You squeal well, but it means nothing. I have heard 1,000 such empty boasts. Your species will grovel before the Hazari. It is inevitable." Baker met that sneer with a bitter smile. "So be it. See you on the battlefield." As Hazari warships began their inexorable push into human space, Baker arrayed his forces like pieces on a chessboard. Stealthy battle stations lay in wait. Hungry minefields drifted in the invaders' path, and the bulk of humanity's fleets prepared for a thunderous, head-on clash that would rattle the stars. Across thousands of ships and installations, Earth's warriors steeled themselves for the point of no return. Baker's face appeared on every display, his eyes blazing with barely contained fury. "You all know what's coming," he said. "The Hazari think they can break us. They think we'll shatter at the first blow. But they don't know human tenacity, our sheer stubborn will to survive." A rising chorus of cheers and bellows erupted from millions of human throats. Baker raised a clenched fist. "We're not just fighting for Earth. We fight for every species that's ever suffered under the Hazari's boot. We fight to prove that freedom is stronger than tyranny." He took a breath, his next words ringing like cannon fire. "So stand tall. Remember this moment. Today we show the galaxy what humanity is made of." Jack felt a savage grin spread across his face as he sealed his flight helmet, mirrored on the faces of the pilots around him. Techs and armorers scrambled to finish their final checks. Soldiers and spacers squared their shoulders, ready to pit human courage against Hazari arrogance. The fleets hung in the void, weapons primed, scanners lighting up with contacts. The Hazari armada was minutes away, a wave of warships cresting the horizon, screaming for blood. Jack armed his weapons with a flick of a switch and stared into the abyss. His targeting computer flickered and chimed, an AI whispering in his ear. The void stared back, hungry and waiting. There was nothing left but the fight. The void erupted into chaos as the first Hazari ships breached human space. Suddenly, the darkness came alive with flashes of weapons fire. Cloaked human vessels materialized from nowhere, their stealth fields dropping as they unleashed hellish barrages on the unsuspecting invaders. "All units, engage at will!" Baker's voice crackled over the comms. "Hit hard and fade fast. Don't let them pin you down." Jack's fighter squadron screamed past a Hazari cruiser, their new phase cannons carving molten gashes in its hull. The alien ship's return fire sliced through empty space as the nimble human craft danced away. "Holy shit, did you see that?" Jack whooped. "Their armor's effortlessly against our guns." Across the system, similar scenes played out as humanity's hidden fleets sprang their trap. Hazari ships exploded in silent starbursts, caught completely off guard by the ferocity of the assault. On his command ship, Baker watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. "That's right, you arrogant bastards. Choke on it." But he knew this was only the beginning. "Harrison, form up your strike team. You've got to go for Operation Headshot." "Copy that, sir. We're Oscar Mike." Jack's stealth shuttle slipped past the remnants of the Hazari Vanguard, zeroing in on their towering flagship. His team of elite commandos checked their gear one last time. "All right, people, we've got one shot at this," Jack said. "Let's show these xeno-freaks what happens when you piss off humanity." They breached the hull with muffled charges, then fought their way through twisting corridors. Hazari defenders fell before their onslaught, outmatched by the humans' advanced powered armor and energy weapons. In the flagship's cavernous engine room, Jack's team worked with practiced efficiency to plant their sabotage devices. Alarms blared as the Hazari realized the depth of the penetration. "Charges set," his demolitions expert called. 2 minutes to detonation. They fought their way back to their shuttle just as the flagship's main weapons exploded in a chain reaction. As they pulled away, Jack watched the mighty vessel list helplessly, venting atmosphere and debris. The Hazari admiral's panicked voice echoed across all frequencies. "All ships, fall back. Regroup at Rally Point Epsilon." As the invaders retreated in disarray, cheers erupted throughout the human fleet. But Baker knew better than to celebrate prematurely. This was only round one. Across the galaxy, news of humanity's defiance spread like wildfire. On a dozen subjugated worlds, alien races who had suffered for centuries under Hazari rule began to whisper of rebellion. Corvus moved from shadow to shadow, passing weapons and intelligence to resistance cells. "The humans have shown it can be done," he told a group of rebel leaders. "Now is our chance to break the chains." Riots and uprisings flared on Hazari-controlled planets. The Empire found itself suddenly fighting fires on multiple fronts as it struggled to contain the spreading insurrection. But the Hazari were far from beaten. They returned in force, their war fleets blackening the skies of human colonies. Orbital bombardments scoured the surfaces of once thriving worlds. Baker watched grimly as reports flooded in of staggering casualties and devastation, but humanity refused to break. "Push them back!" he roared as human and Hazari fleets clashed in titanic battles. "Every inch of space they take, make them pay for it in blood!" The newest human warships proved more than a match for Hazari technology. Antimatter torpedoes and gravity lances decimated enemy formations. But still they came, wave after relentless wave. On contested planets, human soldiers in powered armor went toe-to-toe with hulking Hazari warriors. The aliens' superior strength and toughness met its match in human tenacity and firepower. Baker himself led a last-ditch defense of a vital colony world, his tactical brilliance evident as he maneuvered his outnumbered forces to stymie the Hazari assault. "Hold the line!" he bellowed over the din of battle. "We die here if we must, but this planet does not fall." Fall. The battle raged on, but Baker knew they couldn't hold out forever. As he fought alongside his troops, his mind raced with potential strategies. That's when it hit him, a daring plan that could turn the tide of the entire war. Baker called an emergency meeting with Corvus and other rebel leaders. "We need to strike at the heart of the Hazari Empire," he said, his voice filled with fierce persistence. "A multi-pronged offensive to cripple their power structure." Corvus nodded, his eyes gleaming. "I can get you into the Imperial Palace, but it'll be risky." "Risk is all we have left," Baker replied. The plan unfolded with lightning speed. Human strike forces slipped past Hazari defenses, targeting key systems. Explosions rocked shipyards and weapons factories across Hazari space. Jack Harrison led a squadron of fighters on a daring raid of the Hazari capital world. Their ships screamed through the atmosphere, unleashing a barrage of fire on the palace's defensive systems. "Nice shot, Bravo 2, Jack shouted as another turret erupted in flames. "Keep it up. We need to punch a hole for the ground team." As chaos engulfed the capital, Corvus guided Baker and a small team of commandos through hidden passages in the sprawling palace complex. Alarms blared as they fought their way deeper into the heart of Hazari power. Finally, they reached the Imperial throne room. Emperor Valox stood waiting, his massive frame jam-packed with augmented armor. "So the ape thinks to challenge me in my own sanctum," Valox sneered. Baker raised his weapon. "It ends here, Valox." The two leaders clashed in a furious duel. Despite his age and injuries, Valox proved a formidable opponent. His cybernetically enhanced strength sent Baker flying across the room more than once. But Baker refused to stay down. He weathered Valox's onslaught, looking for an opening. When it came, he struck with everything he had. A series of punishing blows drove the Hazari Emperor to his knees. "Surrender," Baker growled, his gun pressed to Valox's head. With their emperor captured, the Hazari military structure crumbled. Across the galaxy, Hazari fleets powered down their weapons. On 100 worlds, Hazari governors raised the white flag of surrender. In the days that followed, Baker oversaw the dismantling of the Hazari regime. He worked tirelessly to establish a new galactic order based on cooperation and self-persistence. But victory came at a terrible cost. As Baker stood on the balcony of the former Imperial Palace, he thought of all those who had sacrificed everything for this moment. Jack Harrison, his friend and loyal pilot, gone in the final push. So many others lost along the way. He looked out at the crowd celebrating in the streets below. Humans stood side by side with newly liberated alien races, all rejoicing in their hard-won freedom. Baker felt a deep weariness settle into his bones. The Hazari were defeated, but the scars of their rule would take generations to heal. Earth lay in ruins, its cities reduced to rubble. Yet as he watched the diverse throng of celebrants, Baker felt a flicker of hope. Humanity had proven its strength and resilience to the galaxy. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Baker stood at the helm of the Federation flagship, his eyes fixed on the swirling holographic display of the galaxy. The once unified expanse of Hazari red had fractured into a chaotic patchwork of colors, each representing a different faction vying for power in the wake of the Empire's fall. "Another riot on Keldor Prime," reported a young officer, her voice tight with stress. "The locals are demanding immediate trials for all Hazari collaborators." Baker rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of leadership pressing down on him. Send in peacekeepers. Remind them that summary justice isn't justice at all. He turned to Corvus, who stood nearby studying tactical readouts. "Any word from the Teresian delegation?" The alien's multifaceted eyes flickered. "They're still insisting on full reparations from the Hazari treasury. If we don't acquiesce, they're threatening to leave the Federation entirely." "Damn it," Baker muttered. He thumped his hand on the console, causing several nearby officers to jump. "Don't they understand we're all in this together now? If we start tearing each other apart over old grievances, we're no better than the Empire we fought so hard to overthrow." As if to punctuate his words, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Baker whirled to face the main view screen, where a tactical officer was frantically inputting commands. "Sir, we've got multiple incoming contacts. It's—" The rest of his words were drowned out as the ship rocked violently. Baker was thrown to the deck, his ears ringing from the impact of whatever had struck them. Through the haze of smoke and sparks, he saw Corvus helping him to his feet. "Hazari attack craft!" the alien shouted over the din. "A whole squadron of them!" Baker's mind raced. How had they gotten this close without being detected? As he opened his mouth to give orders, a second blast rocked the ship. This time he managed to keep his footing. "All hands battle stations," he roared. "Get our fighters in the air and target those bastards with everything we've got." But even as the words left his mouth, Baker knew something was wrong. The Hazari ships weren't pressing their advantage. Instead, they were breaking off, forming up into an arrow formation and accelerating away from the Federation flagship. "Sir," called out the tactical officer, his voice shaky, I think that was just a warning shot. They're transmitting a message." Baker's blood ran cold as the face of General Arkov appeared on the main screen. The Hazari commander's eyes gleamed with cruel intelligence. "Consider this a formal rejection of your so-called Federation's authority," Arkov sneered. "The Hazari Empire will rise again, stronger than ever, and this time we'll crush your pathetic species and all who stand with you." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Baker's mind raced, calculating the implications of this brazen attack. If Arkov had the audacity to strike at the heart of the Federation like this, how many other systems had already fallen under his control? "Get me a secure line to Corvus and the rest of the moderate leadership," Baker ordered, his voice hard as steel. "We need to move fast if we're going to stop this before it spirals out of control." Hours later, Baker stood before a hastily assembled war council. Representatives from a dozen species sat around the table, their faces grim. We have reports of Hazari insurgents seizing control of key shipyards and weapons depots across 3 sectors, Corvus was saying. They're moving with a level of coordination that suggests this has been in the works for months. Baker nodded, his mind focused. Then we hit them hard and fast before they can consolidate their gains. I propose a surgical strike at the heart of their operation, Corvash itself. A murmur of surprise rippled through the assembled leaders. Jara, the young pilot Baker had recently recruited, leaned forward eagerly. "With all due respect, sir," she said, her eyes blazing with barely contained fury, "why not just bomb the entire planet into dust? It's what they deserve after everything they've done." Baker fixed her with a stern gaze. "Because we're better than that, Jara. We didn't fight this war just to become the very monsters we sought to defeat." He turned back to address the entire council. "I'll lead a small team in myself. We'll capture Arkoff and dismantle their command structure from the inside out. It's risky, but it's our best shot at ending this quickly and cleanly." As the council erupted into heated debate, Baker felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on his shoulders. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger, but failure simply wasn't an option. The future of the Federation, and with it, the hope for a lasting peace, hung in the balance. In the days that followed, Baker threw himself into preparations for the mission. He handpicked his strike team, a mix of veteran human operatives and trusted alien allies. As he reviewed personnel files and equipment manifests, he couldn't shake the feeling that the fate of billions rested on the outcome of this single, audacious gambit. The night before the mission launch, Baker found himself unable to sleep. He wandered the corridors of the Federation base, eventually finding his way to the hangar bay. There, bathed in the soft glow of status lights, sat the stealth dropship that would carry them into the heart of enemy territory. As he ran his hand along the ship's sleek hull, Baker heard footsteps approaching. He turned to see Jara, her face a mask of barely contained emotion. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "Every time I close my eyes, I see my family. I hear their screams as the Hazari." Her voice trailed off, choked with anger and grief. Baker placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I know you've suffered, Jara. We all have. But remember why we're doing this. It's not about revenge. It's about building something better. Something that will ensure no one else has to go through what you did." Jara nodded slowly, taking a deep breath to steady herself. "I understand, sir. I won't let you down." As dawn broke over the Federation base, Baker's team made their final preparations. Weapons were checked and rechecked. Stealth systems were calibrated to the tiniest fraction. Every team member knew their role inside and out. Standing before his assembled strike force, Baker felt a surge of pride. Here were beings from a dozen different worlds, united in purpose. This, he realized, was what the Federation could be, what it had to be if they were to have any hope of lasting peace. "You all know the stakes," he said, his voice carrying across the hangar. "If we fail here, everything we fought for could crumble. But I have faith in each and every one of you. Together, we're going to show Arkoff and his neo-imperialists that the age of tyranny is over." A chorus of determined shouts answered him. As Baker climbed aboard the dropship, he allowed himself a small smile. Whatever challenges lay ahead on Corvash, he knew he had the best team in the galaxy at his side. The bay doors yawned open, revealing the star-studded expanse of space. With a roar of engines, the strike force lifted off, streaking toward their rendezvous with destiny on the Hazari homeworld. The dropship shuddered as it punched through Corvash's atmosphere, anti-aircraft fire exploding around them in deadly bursts. Baker gripped the overhead rail, his fist clenched as he steadied himself against the turbulence. 30 seconds to touchdown!" The pilot's voice crackled over the comm. Baker turned to face his strike team. Corvus stood tall, his alien features set in grim focus. Jara's eyes burned with fierce dedication. The others, a mix of humans and allied species, checked their weapons one final time. "Remember," Baker shouted over the roar of the engines, "our objective is Arkoff. We take him alive if possible, but do not hesitate to use lethal force if necessary. The future of the Federation depends on this mission. Let's make it count. The dropship slammed into the ground, its landing struts groaning under the impact. The rear hatch blew open with a hiss of hydraulics, and Baker's team poured out into chaos. Hazari troops swarmed towards them, energy weapons spitting deadly bolts. Baker dove for cover behind a twisted piece of wreckage, returning fire with his pulse rifle. To his left, a Federation soldier screamed as he was cut down by the barrage. "We need air support," Baker shouted into his comm. "Jara, can you clear us a path?" "On it, sir," her voice crackled back. Seconds later, Jara's fighter screamed overhead, its cannons blazing. The Hazari anti-air battery erupted in a massive fireball, momentarily silencing the incoming fire. "Now, push forward," Baker ordered, vaulting over his cover and sprinting towards the looming bulk of Arkov's command complex. They fought their way through the outer defenses, Baker's team moving with practiced precision. Corvus's alien strength proved invaluable, hurling Hazari soldiers aside with bone-crushing force. As they reached the main entrance, Baker split his forces. "Corvus, take your team and hit their power core. We'll push for the command center. Good luck." Corvus nodded solemnly. "May your aim be true, my friend." Baker watched as Corvus led his squad down a side corridor before turning to face the heavily fortified main hallway. "All right, people. This is where it gets ugly. Stay sharp and watch for traps." They advanced cautiously, every shadow potentially concealing an ambush. The first attack came swiftly. Hazari guards pouring out of hidden alcoves, their energy blades humming with lethal intent. Jara proved herself a whirlwind of destruction. Her piloting reflexes translated into lightning-fast hand-to-hand combat skills. She ducked under a Hazari's wild swing, driving her combat knife up into a vulnerable spot in its armor. Baker fought with cold efficiency, each shot from his pulse rifle finding its mark. But the Hazari kept coming, their cybernetically enhanced bodies shrugging off wounds that would fell a normal being. Suddenly the lights flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in, bathing the corridor in an eerie red glow. "Corvus did it," Baker breathed. "Push forward. Arkov will be falling back to his inner sanctum." They fought their way deeper into the complex, leaving a trail of Hazari bodies in their wake. But Baker's team paid a heavy price. One by one, his soldiers fell to precisely laid traps or overwhelming force. As they reached the final set of blast doors leading to Arkov's command center, Baker realized with a sinking feeling that only he and Jara remained standing. "Last chance to turn back," he said grimly. Jara hefted her weapon. "Not a chance in hell, sir." Baker nodded, then triggered the door controls. As the massive portal slid open, they were met by a hail of weapons fire. "Get down!" Baker shouted, pulling Jara behind a support pillar. Arkov's voice boomed from within the chamber. "So, the great Baker comes to meet his doom. I must admit, I'm almost impressed you made it this far." Baker's mind raced, searching for a way to overcome the Hazari general's final defenses. That's when he heard it, the distant whine of fighter engines. "Jara," he whispered urgently, "can you get your ship in here?" Her eyes widened in understanding. "It'll be tight, but I can do it." "Do it," Baker ordered. "I'll keep Arkov busy." As Jara slipped away, Baker stepped out from cover, his weapon raised. "It's over, Arkov. Surrender now, and we can end this without further bloodshed." Arkov's laughter echoed through the chamber. "Fool, I am the rightful ruler of this galaxy. I will never surrender." His words were cut off as Jara's fighter screamed through the open blast doors, its weapons blazing. The chamber erupted in chaos, giving Baker the opening he needed. He charged forward, dodging falling debris and wildly firing energy bolts. Arkov stood at the far end of the room, his cybernetic enhancements gleaming in the flickering light. The two leaders clashed in a brutal hand-to-hand struggle. Arkov's enhanced strength sent Baker reeling, but the human refused to stay down. He weathered the Hazari's onslaught, looking for an opening. When it came, Baker struck with everything he had. A series of punishing blows drove Arkov back, the Hazari general's eyes widening in disbelief. With a final, desperate lunge, Baker drove his combat knife into a weak point in Arkov's armor. The Hazari general let out a strangled gasp, then collapsed to the floor. Baker stood over his fallen foe, his chest heaving from exertion. He looked up to see Jara climbing out of her fighter, her face streaked with sweat and grime. "Is it done?" she asked quietly. Baker nodded, the weight of their victory settling over him. "It's done." As they stumbled out of the ruined command complex, Baker's mind reeled with the cost of their success. Corvus, gone. So many others lost. But as he saw the cheering faces of the Federation troops, he knew their sacrifice had not been in vain. The galaxy would know peace. Baker stood at the viewport of the Federation flagship, his eyes fixed on the distant orb of Kravion. The once peaceful Hazari colony now pulsed with an ominous energy, its cities transformed into fortresses by the fanatical purifiers. "Sir, we've received another transmission from Raskav," a young communications officer reported. "He's demanding our immediate withdrawal from the system." Baker's lips pursed. "Play it." A hologram flickered to life, revealing the sneering face of Raskav. The Purifier leader's eyes blazed with zealotry as he spoke. "Your Federation is weak, Baker. We will cleanse this sector of your corruption and restore the true ways of the Hazari. Leave now, or face annihilation." As the transmission cut out, Baker turned to Jara. Her face was a mask of cold fury. "We can't let this continue," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "Every day we delay, more innocents suffer under Raskav's rule." Baker nodded grimly. "Agreed, but a frontal assault would be suicide. We need to get inside, dismantle their defenses from within." He paused, studying Jara's face. "It won't be easy. We'll have to become the very thing we've fought against. Are you prepared for that?" Jara's eyes hardened. "Whatever it takes, sir." Days later, a battered freighter limped towards Kravion's primary spaceport. Its hull bore the scars of Federation weapons fire, a carefully crafted deception. "Unidentified vessel, state your business," a gruff voice crackled over the comm. Baker, his features altered by subtle prosthetics, leaned into the microphone. "Refugees seeking asylum. We've had enough of Federation tyranny." Long seconds ticked by as the Purifier controllers deliberated. Finally, the voice returned. "Proceed to Docking Bay 7. Any deviation will result in immediate termination." As they touched down, Baker and Jara exchanged a tense glance. The real challenge was about to begin. Purifier soldiers swarmed the ship as soon as the hatch opened. Baker and Jara raised their hands, playing the part of cowed refugees. "On your knees!" a hulking Hazari barked, energy rifle trained on Baker's chest. They complied, allowing themselves to be roughly searched and restrained. As they were marched through the spaceport, Baker took in every detail. Guard rotations, security choke points, potential weaknesses. Their interrogation lasted for hours. Baker spun a tale of disillusionment with the Federation, of atrocities witnessed, and a burning desire for vengeance. He could see the doubt in the Purifier commander's eyes slowly give way to interest. "You claim to seek enlightenment in our ways," the commander said, leaning forward. "Prove it. Show us your devotion to the true path." Baker didn't hesitate. He grabbed a ritual blade from the commander's belt and, with a swift motion, carved the Purifier sigil into his own forearm. Blood welled up, but Baker's face remained impassive. The commander's eyes widened in surprise, then approval. "Welcome, brothers. You will be tested further, but for now, you may join our ranks." Over the following weeks, Baker and Jara immersed themselves in Purifier culture. They trained in brutal hand-to-hand combat, memorized ancient Hazari war chants, and participated in grueling rituals of purification. All the while, they watched and waited. Baker identified key lieutenants with wavering loyalty. Jara's fierce prowess in combat drills caught Raskov's attention, just as they'd hoped. Late one night, as they huddled in their sparse quarters, Baker whispered to Jara, "It's time. Kozlov's fleet is in position. Are you ready?" Jara nodded, her eyes glinting in the darkness. "Let's end this." The next day, as Jara sparred with Raskov's elite guards, The purifier leader himself appeared. He watched her intently, a predatory smile playing across his lips. "You fight with the spirit of a true Hazari warrior," Raskov said, circling Jara. "Perhaps you are worthy of a place by my side." Jara bowed low, hiding the revulsion in her eyes. "I live to serve the cause, Great One." As Jara integrated herself into Raskov's inner circle, Baker set their plan in motion. A carefully placed word here, a stolen security code there. Slowly but surely, cracks began to form in the purifier leadership. The day of reckoning arrived with the sudden failure of Cravion's orbital defense grid. As alarms blared and purifier forces scrambled in confusion, Baker sent the signal to Kozlov's waiting fleet. In Raskov's private chambers, Jara struck. A hidden nerve toxin in her gauntlet sent the purifier leader crumpling to the floor, paralyzed but conscious. Baker burst in moments later, flanked by a squad of their turned purifier allies. He looked down at Raskov, seeing the hatred and fear warring in the fallen leader's eyes. "It's over, Raskov," Baker said, his voice cold. "Surrender now and we can end this without further bloodshed." Raskov's face contorted with rage. He spat a glob of blood at Baker's feet. "Never. I am the true future of the Hazari. I will never bow to Federation dogs." Baker's expression hardened. Without another word, he raised his sidearm and fired a single precise shot. Raskov's body went limp, his fanatical eyes dulling as life fled. Outside, the sounds of battle echoed through Cravion's capital. Federation drop pods streaked through the atmosphere as Kozlov's troops engaged the disorganized purifier forces. Baker turned to Jara, his face grim but resolute. "Let's finish this." They strode out of Raskov's chambers, ready to bring an end to the purifier's reign of terror once and for all. The galaxy held its breath. In the aftermath of the purifier crisis, a fragile peace settled over the Federation. But it was not to last. Baker stood before the Federation Council, his face etched with concern as he listened to the latest reports. Admiral Chen's voice echoed through the chamber. "Another colony has gone dark. That's the third this month. No distress calls, no signs of struggle. They're just gone." Murmurs of unease rippled through the assembled delegates. Baker's eyes narrowed as he studied the holographic display of affected systems. "What about the Novan expedition?" he asked. Chen shook his head. "No word. Their last transmission spoke of strange energy readings, then nothing." A Zalarian counselor leaned forward, his translucent skin shimmering with agitation. "We cannot ignore this any longer. Something is out there, something beyond our understanding." Baker nodded grimly. "Agreed. We need answers, and we need them fast." Days later, Baker found himself aboard the research vessel Horizon, staring out at the swirling chaos of a dark matter nebula. Beside him stood Kariv, the Zalarian exoarchaeologist. Her multifaceted eyes reflected the eerie glow of the ship's sensors. "The energy signature is strongest here," Kariv said, her voice a soft buzz. "But I've never seen readings like this. It's as if space itself is wounded." Baker frowned. "Can we penetrate the nebula?" Kariv's appendages danced over the control panel. "I believe so, but it will not be pleasant." The Horizon shuddered as it plunged into the roiling darkness. Baker's stomach lurched, his sense of up and down twisting sickeningly. Then suddenly, they were through. "By the first ones," Kariv breathed. Before them lay the impossible. A graveyard of worlds, shattered and broken. Massive structures hung suspended in the void, their alien architecture defying comprehension. Baker's mind reeled as he tried to process the scale of destruction. What could have done this? Kariv's voice trembled. "Not what, Commander? Who?" They spent days exploring the dead system, each discovery more chilling than the last. As Baker studied a fragment of alien technology, his vision blurred. For a moment, he saw something. A city of impossible angles, beings of pure energy, a hunger that devoured stars. He blinked and it was gone, but the unease remained. "Baker," Kariv's urgent voice snapped him back to reality. "We're detecting an anomaly. Something's coming through." Baker rushed to the bridge, his heart pounding. On the interface, space itself seemed to twist and tear. And then it was there. A ship, if such a word could apply. Its form hurt to look at, all wrong angles and pulsing otherworldly energy. "Evasive maneuvers!" Baker shouted, but it was too late. The alien vessel fired. There was no beam, no projectile. Reality itself seemed to ripple, and alarms blared as the Horizon's systems failed. "Shields are useless," the tactical officer yelled. "It's like they're not even there." Baker's mind raced. They were outmatched, outgunned, facing an enemy beyond their comprehension. There was only one choice. "Emergency fold jump," he ordered. "Get us out of here now." The Horizon lurched sickeningly as its jump drive engaged. For a terrifying moment, Baker thought they wouldn't make it. Then, with a final wrenching twist, they tore free of the alien ship's grasp. They limped back to Federation space, their ship barely holding together. As the debriefings dragged on, Baker couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled in his gut. Late one night, he found Kareev in the lab poring over their scant data. "Tell me you've found something," Baker said, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep. Karev's eyes were haunted as she looked up. "I have, but you won't like it." She brought up a holographic display, a map of the known universe. Slowly, methodically, entire sections began to blink out. "These are the areas we've confirmed as empty," Kareev explained. "Devoid of all energy, all life. And the pattern is expanding." Baker stared at the display, the implications hitting him like a physical blow. "How long?" Kareev's appendages twitched nervously. "At the current rate of expansion, we have perhaps a century before our entire galaxy is consumed." Baker's fists clenched. A century. To save not just humanity, not just the Federation, but all life as they knew it. "We need a team," he said, his voice hard with willpower. "The best of every species. Scientists, soldiers, diplomats, whatever it takes." Kareev nodded, a flicker of hope in her alien eyes. And then? Baker looked out at the stars, each one now a potential victim of this cosmic horror. "Then we find these things, we stop them, or we die trying." Baker's fingers trembled as he activated the esoteric beacon. Its surface pulsed with an otherworldly glow, emitting frequencies beyond human perception. The air around them shimmered, reality itself seeming to bend and warp. "What is that thing?" Jara shouted over the cacophony of alarms blaring through their ship's systems. "Our last hope," Baker replied, his eyes fixed on the swirling chaos beyond the view screen. The nightmare entities assailing them paused, their attacks faltering as the beacon's resonance spread. Baker felt a pressure building in his skull, a sensation of vast intelligences turning their attention towards them. Suddenly, the ship lurched violently. Jara's hands flew across the controls, fighting to maintain their position as space itself seemed to twist around them. "We're caught in some kind of dimensional flux," she yelled. "I can't hold us steady." Vrax's multifaceted eyes widened as he studied the readings flooding his console. Fascinating. The beacon appears to be generating a hyperspatial corridor. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. As the Zalarian spoke, a rift tore open before them. Through it, Baker glimpsed impossible geometries and colors that had no right to exist in their universe. The ship was drawn inexorably towards the tear in reality. "Jara, can you get us through?" Baker asked, gripping his seat as the vessel shuddered. She gritted her teeth, her fingers dancing across the controls with inhuman speed. "I'll do my damn best, sir." With a sickening lurch, they plunged into the rift. Baker's senses reeled as they traversed realities never meant for mortal minds. He caught glimpses of vast entities, of civilizations rising and falling in the blink of an eye, of entire universes born and dying. Just as Baker felt his sanity beginning to fray, they erupted back into normal space, or what passed for normal in this twisted region of the cosmos. Before them loomed a structure that defied comprehension. It dwarfed stars, its architecture an affront to Euclidean geometry. And surrounding it, a swarm of beings that hurt to look upon directly. "My God," Jara whispered, her face pale. What are they? Baker's mouth went dry as understanding dawned. The precursors. We found their home. The beacon pulsed one final time, then went dark. In its wake, a booming voice filled their minds, speaking in concepts rather than words. You have called, we have answered. Speak, children of the younger races. Baker swallowed hard, knowing that humanity's fate now rested on what he said next. He opened his mouth to address these unfathomable beings, praying that somehow he could find the words to save his species from annihilation. Baker's consciousness ripped through the fabric of reality, his mind aflame with impossible knowledge. The hyper-simulated megastructure loomed before him, a monument to cosmic insanity that defied comprehension. As his team plunged into this realm unbound by conventional physics, Baker felt his grip on sanity slipping away. Jara's voice crackled over the comm, tinged with panic. Baker, I can't. My systems are failing. These readings don't make sense. Before Baker could respond, Jara's fighter disintegrated before his eyes, dissolving into streams of fractalized data. His heart seized as he watched her eject, her body tumbling through the void, racked by forces beyond mortal understanding. Yara! He screamed, but his words were swallowed by the howling crescendos of thought code that assailed them from all sides. Vrax's experimental craft twisted and warped, its quantum waveforms scrambling beyond recognition. Baker caught a glimpse of the Zalarian's face, frozen in a rictus grin as his consciousness was obliterated. Kariv's desperate attempt to communicate echoed through Baker's mind, a frantic mathematic plea for mercy. But the hyper-savants were beyond such petty concerns. Baker watched in horror as Kariv's corporeal form unraveled, his essence scattered to the cosmic winds. Alone now, Baker fought to maintain control of his craft as ineffable horrors swarmed around him. The trans-dimensional drive screamed in protest, overloading as he pierced the final veil. And there, at the heart of this madness, he beheld the source, a cyber-augured overmind of unimaginable power. It regarded Baker with cold indifference, as one might regard an insect before crushing it beneath their heel. As his craft's shielding crumbled, Baker closed his eyes, thinking of Jara drifting in the void. He had failed her, failed them all. But in that moment of utter despair, reality itself shuddered. A wave of impossible geometries crashed over the domain, shattering the hyper-savant's predictive calculus. From the fractured space-time, entities beyond Baker's comprehension emerged. Their thoughts burned into his mind, ancient and terrible. We are the contingencies beyond contingencies, they intoned, their words searing Baker's synapses. The unmappable horizons at the rim of every simulation's demise. Baker's craft disintegrated around him, his consciousness adrift in pure unreality. He became a passenger on fractal shockwaves, watching as the great megastructure was paradoxically unwritten, churned into an impossibility vortex of incoherent chronomatics. When Baker finally regained awareness, he found himself on the shattered bridge of a human dreadnought. His body was a shell, eroded into a chilling quasi-life. The crew recoiled from him in terror, their minds teetering on the brink of madness at the sight of what he had become. Baker tried to speak, but the words that emerged were incomprehensible, tinged with sanity-flaying hypergosmic data lores. He had forestalled the hyper-savant's extermination, but at what cost? As he struggled to piece together his fractured psyche, the final message of the Old Ones echoed through his mind, a chilling prophecy that would haunt him for eternity. All order must ultimately surrender to chaos absolute.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.